Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Sibi. I am a health and fitness coach for women in menopause and a host of this Inspire show. And as you know, I have always guests who can inspire you in some way. Today I have here my guest, Sarah Doyle, Dr. Sarah Doyle. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good, good. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Um, you are midlife crisis hormone expert. Uh, Tell me about this.
Sure. Well, in the United States, you're in Europe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's pretty well known to us living here. When we go to Europe, we can eat whatever we want. And then many Europeans, I'm in Miami Beach. So people live half the time here, half the time there. And we all say the same thing. Our food is awful here. It's full of toxins. It hurts our stomach, makes us bloated, makes us gain weight. I was talking to this woman who moved here from Australia, and she's like, all my clothes are tailored. They're not fitting. I'm not eating any different. What's in the food here? So the United States has a lot of pesticides in their food that they don't have in other countries. And they are not only they're bad for their neurotoxins, but they're also xenoestrogens. So both men and women are highly affected by all these toxins in food. And we don't really get much nutrition education. Our doctors in medical school get very little nutrition education. A regular MD only gets 1 to 2 hours of menopause education. Even in OBGYN, that's obstetrics and gynecology. That's the same doctor that delivers babies and does everything. All women only has 6 to 8 hours of education in menopause management. So if you're a woman and you're just eating whatever food is at the restaurant, I mean, unless you shop at an organic market and you cook at home, or you buy from farmers markets, and you have to get your meat from special places that doesn't have all the mRNA vaccines, and they're not fed grains and all this stuff. Like, so unless you're sourcing your food and putting a really good effort towards it and getting it delivered and cooking at home every single meal, you end up full of toxins. And these toxins are
Mm.
xenoestrogens. They're affecting men and they're affecting women. So in my coaching program here in the United States, I get men and women, kids in their 30s with hormone levels that men used to get in their late 50s. It's
Well,
it's a real crisis in our country.
yes, I heard in America. It's so complicated to get real good food, the whole foods we eat here in Hungary, let's say. How did
Yeah,
you
exactly.
change
Um,
yeah? Yes, you can say.
so yeah, I have a coaching program during the pandemic lockdown. I started an online coaching program. I started with women because I'm a woman. I started practicing on my friends, and then I got referrals and started charging people. And women need a lot of help. All these pesticides, these xenoestrogens, they're like estrogen, but not estrogen. So they take up a lot of space in the liver, and the liver has a hard time breaking these things down. And then their regular hormones take a back seat to getting processed. So, a woman that's got high estrogens, whether they're like the real estrogens our body makes or the toxic estrogens from food, having high estrogens makes you really bloated. It makes you gain a lot of weight in the abdomen and thighs. If she's still menstruating, it makes a very thick endometrial lining and very painful periods. We also have a lot of blood sugar dysregulation, which leads to blood sugar dysregulation like prediabetes. And it's also because of all the stuff in the food and the hectic lifestyle and not sleeping. So my program started with just women's hormones, and I wrote my first book, The Thin Formula. And so those
Mhm.
are lifestyle modifications that women can do, just like pulling some of the a lot of like the cleaning products also have a lot of fake fragrances. These are also xenoestrogens. A lot of the candles and the the fragrance, all the fake stuff, start pulling it out of your home. Thin formula stands for thyroid hormones, intercourse, and nutrition. So I talk about physical exercise and also intercourse, and getting, having a good sexual relationship is a very valid predictor of your overall vitality. So, and it's very taboo to talk about with, I don't know how your culture is, but to talk about your sex drive with your doctor, like they don't want to hear it. They don't want to tell you anything. They don't want to talk to you about it. They don't want to offer any help. So I talked to him about that. I think we should be able to talk about periods. We should be able to talk about menopause. We should be able to talk about why it hurts to have sex with my partner, or why he pissed me off 5 years ago and I still can't connect. Like, we should be able to talk about these things. So I addressed that in that first book, The Thin Formula. And then I wrote my second book, The 7X Method, that is based off of a quantic eating program, quantic medicine program in Central America. I traveled by myself, and I call it divine intervention. Like, God wanted me to meet, I knew I was going there with a purpose. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to go, and like, I prayed about it, and God's like, go, I'm going to show you something. I'm like, okay. So I kept my mind open, and I was introduced to this liaison who works with this quantic medicine program. So there's this healing center where they don't want Americans or anybody to know about it, but it's been there for over 50 years. People go there with cancers and all kinds of things, and they heal them using food as medicine. So obviously they're not going to give me the cancer curing protocols, right? But I did get the basic timed eating protocols that prevent diseases and recalibrate the metabolic systems. And that's where I wrote the 7X method. So we have lifestyle interventions and nutrition advice. And then I couple that with testing at home. So all my clients in the continental United States, they can receive hormone panels at home. We test their brain chemistry, and we can touch upon that too, like the interaction between the brain and the sex hormones, especially through perimenopause and menopause. But we test their thyroid. We look for heavy metals. We're a big sushi. We eat a lot of sushi here. I live in Miami Beach, so I eat a lot of fish. There's a lot of metals, hormone disruptors. Yeah, and we test the brain chemistry, the sex hormones, stress hormones, heavy metals and thyroid. And then I give people supplements to try to do everything naturally using herbs instead of prescription drugs. I want to keep people off of prescription drugs as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, because medication usually have side effects, and we want to avoid that. Yes, and how can you measure these things with the test, how it looks?
Sure, we use urine panels. So I never knew how valuable my urine is, right? And every chemical reaction that's happened in your body, it comes out in metabolites. Like, you can get so much information. So I do a 5-sample urine test of the steroid hormones. The steroid hormones include your cortisol, the cortisone metabolites. We're able to check some methylation status. We get the estrogens, E1, E2, E3, and then we also have, we get of the E1 metabolites, we get the 2-hydroxyestrone, which is a protective metabolite. So we get to see this is how we get to see like if they're methylating okay. And then we can check the levels of 16-hydroxyestrone, and that's definitely elevated in people that have low thyroid, obesity, high pesticide use. And then we look at the 4-hydroxyestrone, which can be potentially carcinogenic. And that, if I have that coupled with a lot of breast tenderness and fibroids, uterine fibroids, then we really want to try to bring these toxic metabolites down using vitamins, minerals, and herbs, because cancers, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, all these things occur later in life. Like, you get a diagnosis when you're 70 or 80, but these diseases start in midlife. So I really want to try to get women in their 40s, definitely by they get to their 50s, and make sure that we can keep sufficient levels of estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and then keep an eye on these toxic metabolites. And you can't get that. You can go to a regular doctor, you can get blood work, but they're not going to be able to get those toxic metabolites And those are, I mean,
Mhm.
breast cancer in the United States, the statistics are 1 out of 8 women gets breast cancer. 1 out of 5 women will die of cardiovascular disease, which can be a stroke or a heart attack. And we, most of the research is done on men. Men, they have a heart attack, their left arm hurts. Women, it's not like that. It feels like heartburn. They may get little or no symptoms. And so we don't get care in time. So for me, I really want to focus on prevention. And the other thing is Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is like diabetes of the brain. And Alzheimer's is characteristically, there's like a buildup of these amyloid plaques. So what some recent research has found, I've been following this doctor out of Cornell University in New York, which she's been doing brain scans of women who have normal estrogen levels, women who had estrogen levels that dropped but did something about it, whether it was bioidentical hormone replacement therapy or herbal therapy, so that their estrogen levels stayed ideal, and then comparing them against women whose estrogen levels dropped with menopause and they did nothing about it. So when they looked at these brain scans, they found that the women with no estrogen or lower estrogen had actual shrinkage of brain
Mm.
tissue. And
Wow.
yeah, so in the United States, the statistics say that 1 out of 6 Americans will get Alzheimer's disease. And it happens to women twice as often as men. Why is that? Well, we think it's because of that drop in estrogen. And what this researcher from Cornell University has found is that as soon as women are perimenopausal and they start skipping periods, this is when the amyloid plaques start to develop in the brain. It's that early. So it's so important for women in their 40s, as soon as they start skipping periods, as soon as they start feeling different. It's a second puberty and it takes years. So as soon as you start going through your second puberty, you need to start testing your hormones and making sure you're taking the herbs you need to keep them at ideal levels, because it's going to protect you against getting elevated triglycerides, getting fatty liver, getting amyloid plaques in your brains, developing breast cancer. That you really have to monitor. And I don't know if that's much different in other parts of the world. And a lot of the studies in UK will mirror the United States, but I know every nation in Europe has different habits, should we say.
Probably. Yes, but so you can uh, help with estrogen level with vitamins and herbs or
Yeah.
only? Yes.
Yep. Yep. My mother's in her 70s and her doctor tried to put her on the bioidentical hormones and she didn't feel good. Her breast got big. She started gaining weight. She just didn't feel good. And so we took her off of that, started detoxing her liver to get the bioidentical hormones out, and started giving her herbs and some other, vitamins, minerals, herbs, amino acids. So so we get this brain chemistry test. I can look and see, is the serotonin dropping? If so, I see someone with low serotonin, low estrogen, I know they need help, 911. And we can take things to change the brain chemistry too. I published a case study in a medical journal about a woman who had multiple mental health issues for many years. And we were able to normalize her brain chemistry levels just using vitamins, minerals, amino acids.
That's something.
Yeah,
It's a
well,
big thing.
God gave us everything we need on this planet. And, the pharmaceutical companies have squashed all of that. And so I'm trying to bring back the renaissance, because you don't get side effects from herbs, you know?
Yes. Yes, for medication. I always try to my uh, clients also to say don't take medication. Try to eat whole foods and eat and try to use herbs also and whole foods.
So how do women deal with menopause in Hungary?
They are not. It's not like in America. It's they just accepting it.
Mhm.
They don't do anything. So I try to do something to help them a little with whole foods and herbs and these
Mhm.
things. Because here uh, that yes, they are medication, but doctors always give medication. But who don't want to take it, they can use some natural things.
Mhm.
But they don't in their mind. They think that this is normal, and this is the normal way how we women live in menopause. They have symptoms and they don't feel good and these things, because
Mm.
their mother
That's the
felt
same.
the same way, so they will feel the same way.
Yeah, it's really a shame. These aren't um all these symptoms, they're not just normal signs of aging. They're signs of your hormones dropping, and there's signs that you're beginning to develop diseases. We need to teach people that this is not normal. This is your body telling you something. When your body is not feeling good, you have to listen to the signals, because this is how cancer takes 10 years to develop. Heart disease takes 10, 20 years to develop. When you're getting these signs early, you're going to go to your doctor, you'll get the blood work. The doctor is like, oh, no, you're fine. But you're not fine. And that's why we need to address things. That's why I use the urine panels. I use the urine testing because it's more sensitive. I can pick up more information.
Hmm. I didn't know that. So it's a good
Yeah.
information.
Yes, I'm
um,
in Miami Beach. There's a lot of like biohackers. Like I think Miami Beach has a reputation for being a party town, but it's not like that anymore. Everybody, there's like yoga, and everybody's into spirituality and healing and plant medicine. It's a big biohacking community. There's cold plunges and red light saunas and all these places where people are going to do their biohacking. So, um, you know, I, I'm privileged to be around people who are bigger players in the game than me, because it pushes me to, I not only do I get to learn from them, but it makes me like work harder to be innovative.
mhm. And you mentioned methylation. What is
I'm gonna lose
methylation?
signal. Methylation is, I just tell people, it's kind of like a fancy word for metabolism. Like, how does your body break things down and synthesize chemicals, right? Okay, so you eat a piece of food and your body deconstructs it and then reconstructs it into different things that we use. Well, we have genes in our body, and these genes, nobody has perfect genetics. We're born with a little, they're called SNPs, SNPs, a single nucleotide polymorphism. So, we have a bunch of different genes that handle methylation. So every gene is coded to produce an enzyme. So when that enzyme may only be produced at 70% capacity or 30% capacity, because that methylation gene wasn't born perfect. So if your body is constantly trying to do something at 70% capacity or 30% capacity, you start to develop some symptoms. So some of the symptoms with different methylation genes, like the MTHFR, people have like neuropathies, ADHD, autism. Then there's like the catechol-methyltransferase gene, the COMT. That one plays a part in the catecholamine metabolism and also the metabolism of estrogens. So people who have that gene will often also have ADHD. They'll have really high toxic estrogen levels, and they may have difficulty metabolizing dopamine into norepinephrine and epinephrine. So then there's other genes like the ACHY there's other ones that contribute to your gut, to your cardiac issues. Like I had a patient who had, I think it was MTR or the MTRR gene. He had like, it's called a homozygous SNP. That means it's really not doing well. And he had really bad hypertension. Totally fit guy, works out all the time, not a bit of fat on him. And he's wondering how he has anxiety and pathological. He has like the blood pressure of somebody who's morbidly obese about to have a stroke. you know, and how does this happen with somebody who's super fit? Well, it's because these things are not breaking down in their body. Things like homocysteine and other chemicals. So I hope that makes sense. It's just how your body breaks things down and utilizes things, and it's a specific group or category of genes.
And how, and we can help them with some recommendation how to avoid
Yes.
these.
Yeah. So I tell my clients, if when we look at your test and we can see that you have some genetic issues, you know, we can't help what we're born with, but what we can do is pump you up with therapeutic levels of pharmaceutical grade nutraceuticals. So basically, really pure vitamins that at higher doses, therapeutic doses, that will actually move the needle and change your genetic, or we call your epigenetic presentation. So we can, just because you're born with certain genetics doesn't mean you have to live that way. Like we can bypass these things.
Mm-hmm. And so we can, how, if somebody says that her mom had cancer and she's afraid of it, what can you suggest to her?
Absolutely. My grandmother had breast cancer twice and now she has lymphoma. So it is definitely scary. And when we did our genetics, my mom, my sister, and me, we don't have a breast cancer gene. So we were really puzzled, the BRCA. And so we were like, how can this be? When I started studying for functional medicine, I learned how the other methylation genes help break down these toxic estrogens. So in the urine test that I do, that's why I check for those metabolites. The specifically the 4-hydroxyestrone metabolite, if I see that's high and they have breast cancer in their family, I say, okay, we really need to focus on your liver. I may give them things like calcium deglucarate, sulforaphane, diindolylmethane, or indole 3-carbinol. These are all things that come from the family of vegetables that are like cruciferous.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're gonna have to eat a whole lot of broccoli to get a therapeutic level of this stuff. So, and these supplements work. They do. It's moved the needle for me because I've always had fibrocystic breasts. Every time I get a mammogram, they're like, oh, and now we got to get an ultrasound because we can't tell. And I'm like, you know, my boobs always hurt. And, you know, it wasn't until I got through the functional medicine program that I figured out why we have cancer in our family and what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I read the research and it was like, well, yeah, it's in the research. But, you know, as I was studying, I figured it out. So for women who are concerned about cancers, then it's really important to get this testing done. I don't know if you can find it in, I don't know if you can find it there in Europe. I'm really not sure. You can find me on Instagram and I can try to ship it to a relative in the United States and they can, no, you have to come here to do it. You're gonna have to take a vacation.
Okay. And what I wanted, I forgot what I wanted to ask. Do you work with not just with perimenopausal women, but are you working with older women over 60, let's say? Do you
Yes.
can help them also?
Yep. I have in my group, in my coaching group, I have a few women who are over 60 or over 70. You know, they're the ones that have been kicked around to their doctors and they don't feel good and they're tired of mainstream medicine. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's hard we can't prevent heart disease and we can't turn back the time on your increased risk of Alzheimer's. So what happens when a woman's progesterone and estrogen drop, even if she's eating well and exercising, she's still going to have increased triglyceride levels, which those are blood fats. And those blood fats are going to lead to laying down cholesterol into the arteries. And that can be in the heart and that can be in the brain. So, you know, this can lead to the Alzheimer's dementia, This can contribute to the heart disease. So if we don't catch people soon enough, we can't really reverse. I mean, I should say, I can't guarantee reversal. There are some new supplements. I work with a company called Designs for Health, and we've got a couple supplements. It's called Vascanox and Arterisol. And they've been doing studies on patients, and it's actually starting to restore the integrity of some of these microvessels. So and it's all natural. We're looking at natural ways to improve the integrity of these microvessels. You know, you go to your doctor. I mean, this is what they do here in the United States. You know, a man turns 60, he goes to the doctor, he gets like a CT of where they do the calcium, they do a calcium score of the heart. But those are really big vessels. You know, there's no real standardization of testing for the microvessels. There was a doctor, and I want to say he's out of the Netherlands. I can't remember his name, but he has a device called a glycocheck, and it's a device where it's like a little probe they put under your tongue, and they're able to look at the microvessels and determine your overall cardiovascular health and your risk for that. And they do have a supplement protocol too. Gosh, I got certified with his company like a year and a half ago too. And I never bought the device because it was $20,000. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a return on my investment in my clinic. I couldn't generate enough people, but it was it's called a glycocheck. The doctor's name is Dr. Hans something or other. So the technology is in Europe to measure this stuff. And they do have a hospital version. So I know there's some research hospitals like in Europe and I guess in the United States too that are working with this device.
Mm-hmm. And how can these vitamins and minerals, herbs can help with other symptoms in menopause, like mood swings and sex drive and those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Because all those symptoms are that, you know, we look for the root cause. And so that's, you know, age-related declining estrogens, declining progesterone, testosterone. You know, that's why we test. So once we test, we know what we need to supplement and what we need to target.
Mm-hmm. Can you suggest some herbs which are good for estrogen?
Yeah, so black cohosh is definitely one of them. I like to use chast tree. I'm trying to think, resveratrol, chrisin, tribulus. I think both tribulus and Tongat Ali will help with that. I like to, if I measure her DHEA and I see her DHEA is also low, I mean, give her some of that. If I look and see that both her cortisol levels are depleted and estrogen and testosterone, like the whole thing, then I'll hit her pretty hard with some pregnenolone as a precursor, and then I'll give the herbs to direct the pregnenolone what to do. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Depends. Yeah, I mean, I look at their tests and I see how depleted they are, and that'll drive, you know, how much help they need.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at lifestyle stuff too. Like, you know, you got to get up in the morning, you got to do some kind of lift, you got to lift weights, you got to do some push-ups, you got to do sit-ups, you got to strengthen your core, you've got to strengthen your legs, you've got to do balance exercises, you've got to do things to build muscle all the time because you lose it so quickly the older you get. In the US, we just recategorized muscle as an organ because it secretes so many good anti-inflammatory chemicals. It is like an organ, and it's key in it's the number one thing you can do for anti-aging is build more muscle. So it's not all about herbs, but if you want more testosterone, you've got to do things that help generate testosterone. You got to get out there and you got to lift your finger. There's no magic pill, but you know, if we're doing lifestyle interventions, if we clean up the diet, we're cleaning up the liver and we're still struggling, okay, well then let's come in and you know, hit up with some herbs, especially if they're in their 60s. A lot of the damage is already done.
Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting some kind of strength training, uh, or just yoga, or doesn't matter, just to move a little?
Yeah, I mean, you can't build muscle doing yoga. Not really. You know, you got to get there and do something that makes you sweat. Do something that makes you lose your breath every day. Do like bring yourself up, like challenge yourself. You've got to sweat. You've got to lose your breath. You've got to do something to make your muscles burn.
Yes, exactly. And what
Yeah.
about, do you give um, diet advices in your book?
Yeah, the book 7X Method. I have meal plans. I have a 7-day reset, which helps decrease inflammation. Like it's very strict for 7 days. But if you need to like go to a wedding and you want to fit into a dress or something, I tell people go for it. They'll lose a pant size, and it's you don't feel deprived. You're not starving. You're literally eating 7 times a day, 7 little snacks. You're tired of eating by the time you get to your last snack. So you don't feel like you've starved yourself. And that's key, you know, and it helps you regulate your blood sugar. So I didn't really even touch upon that. So when I get a new patient, the first thing I do is I look at their blood sugar regulation. What is their fasting blood sugar? What is their HbA1c, their hemoglobin A1c? That's a 3-month average of their blood sugar control. Blood sugar is number one, right? Because if that's off, your sex hormones are definitely going to be off. And then number two, I look at the adrenal glands, the cortisol. That's why I do a 5-sample urine test, so I can see what the adrenal glands are doing, and I get both the cortisol and the cortisone metabolites. So I can see how does their body even handle stress? Can they even, because your adrenal glands will make androgen precursors to estrogen. When you go through menopause and your ovaries retire, your adrenal glands can still make these androgen precursors that turn into testosterone, that turn into estrogen. So if you've trashed your body, putting yourself through stress, working 2 jobs, being a single mom, maybe you had an abusive husband or a bad divorce or something, you know, where you have just depleted your adrenal system, you're definitely not going to make enough sex hormones. So we look at blood sugar, we look at the adrenal system, then we look at the sex hormones with the thyroid. And we check toxins for heavy metals, mold. Having a lot of mold in your body can affect your testosterone. So we want to make sure that we're detoxed there too.
That's great. Yeah. Do you have some message to my listener, to women who
Oh
listen?
yeah, sure. So you can find me. My Instagram is just like that book. It's 7X Method. And you can find me there and message me there. I have a biohacking boot camp. If you're in the United States or you have friends or family that live in the US and they've been looking for help, like that's what I get, the message I get. Like women tell me, like, I finally have hope. Like, thank God I met you. Everything was just seemed like a dead end till I met you. So they can find me on my website. It's drsarahdoyle.com. It's DRSARAHDOYLE.com. And they can find under my services, I have a biohacking boot camp. I'm going to give a special discount to your listeners. You'll see it listed there for $5,000. It's summer, it's slow, so I'm giving you a $2,000 discount. I think the discount code was Fit Stylish 50, Fit Stylish 40.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm sure it'll be posted in the comments below. We'll get the actual
Yes.
writing to everything. But
Yes.
yeah, I'll give you guys a $2,000 discount if you have any friends in the United States that they need help. It's a jungle out there. It's really hard to be healthy. And my 10-week boot camp is a real game changer. It's just I know I change lives. I know I'm doing the right thing. So if you know somebody that needs help, you know, I'm happy to be there. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm happy you were here.
Yes, thank you too. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Have a good
Bye.
night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.